I'm saxophonist Keith Loftus, and welcome to the second episode of Coffee with Loftus. I'm really excited to sit down with my good friend and fellow Texan, drummer, and co-founder of the Spin Doctors, Aaron Combs. So sit back, relax, grab your coffee or tea, and enjoy. Aaron Combs, thanks so much for joining Coffee with Loftus today, my brother.
Good to see you, man. I got my coffee right here.
Yes, sir.
I got my Miles mug.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So, man, I just want to get started. How have you been doing during this pandemic?
Well, like everybody, it's been a trip, you know. I mean, it's, I don't think, we didn't see this coming, you know, and everybody's just dealing with it as best as we can, right? So, I mean, it's, you try to stay sane and positive and do what you can to push through. So, I mean, for me, it's, you know, it's been weird and difficult like everybody, but I'm on the positive note, you know, I'm trying to I've been practicing a lot, you know, like I've been practicing more than I have since I was like 20, you know, back in the college days and high school days when we were hanging out in Dallas, you know. So I've got, I've set up a new routine, you know. I mean, it's not that much different than my old routine, except for that, you know, we're not seeing people and I'm not doing gigs, but, you know, I have my recording studio here in Brooklyn and Williamsburg. So I just go there every day, and I've been in like a real focus practice mode, you know. So that's been great, and having the studio has enabled me to do a pretty good amount of recording sessions, mostly with people sending me tracks, you know.
Nice.
That's been cool, and I have, you know, we've done a few in-person sessions, you know. Just, you know, I mask up. I've been like, you know, I mask up, man. And I pretty much, you know, we have separate rooms in there, so it's been safe. You know, Roman's in the control room. We got the vocal booth and the piano booth, and there's another booth, and I'm in my drum room. So I usually just go right in there and like, you know, hey, I'm hanging in here.
Yeah, man.
You know? But you know, hey, man, we're getting through, and I do feel like starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. And,
hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're definitely moving in that direction.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but you know, doing what we can to get through it, man.
Yeah, man. So our history, man, a lot of people probably don't know that we both grew up in Dallas together and went to high school together, which was an amazing experience at the Arts Magnet High School. I wanted to ask you, being from Dallas, who were some of your mentors around town that you got a chance to hear or study with, or, you know?
Well, I'll tell you, man, my biggest influences growing up were my friends, you know, and that was the great thing about going to Arts Magnet High School, as you know. You know, there was just so many great musicians there. I mean, I got to play with you every day for a couple of years. You know, Roy Hargrove was there, you know, and being able to hang out and play with him was amazing. And also, I was really lucky because I have an older brother who's 3 years older than me. So he graduated right when I came in. So we were never at the school together. But when I was younger, you know, I was jamming with him and all his Arts Magnet musician friends at the house. So I had this whole group of these older cats that I looked up to, that I was able to play with. It was really, really influential on me, you know. And then when I went there myself, you know, I mean, like guys like yourself and Roy and you know, Moondog and Joe Jackson and Joe Crump and Danny O'Brien. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And you know, the great thing about the school was there was just so many different kinds of musicians there. I mean, we were able to do the combo and the big band and the orchestra. But you know, there were guys that were into rock and everything, and we were playing music just as much after school as we were in school. So you know, that was the biggest influence for me. But as far as like, I was also really lucky to have a couple really, really great music teachers in Dallas. You know, I had a guy named Jack Iden who taught at the Brook Maze. Remember the Brook Maze on LBJ? You know,
absolutely.
So I just got lucky. I was 9 years old, and I told my parents, "It's like, listen, you know, I want to play some drums. Can you get me some drum lessons?" So, you know, they just called up Brooke Mays because we lived pretty close, you know.
Wow.
And I was really lucky that the guy that taught drums there, his name was Jack Iden, and I studied with him for like the first 4 or 5 years, and he just got me into doing rudiments reading on the practice pad for the first 2 years. You know, I wanted to get a drum kit, but he wouldn't love me. He was like, you know, you might hate me now, but you'll love me later.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And he was right. And then from there, I studied with Rick Latham, who's a great drummer. And he actually came in later and did some stuff at the Arts Magnet as a teacher. And then he moved to LA. And then he recommended I study with Henry Oxtell. Henry Oxtell was the head of the North Texas State University drum department.
Oh, okay.
And he's just a great teacher. And he, you know, when I look back, I mean, he was the guy that really, I was at that right time, you know, it was like all through my high school years when I was at Arts Magnet. And he really helped me put it all together. And he's taught, you know, someone being the guy at North Texas, there's just a long list of great drummers that have studied with him. And, you know, so it was just, I mean, I'm always telling people how grateful I am to have grown up in Dallas then, because, you know, we were so lucky to have that school. And even before that school, I mean, like, you know, the music education program in Texas at the time was strong, you know? Yeah. I mean, I was playing in big band. I was playing in big band in junior high school, reading charts.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yep. I was too.
I went to Walker. Where did you go?
I went to Bout Story.
Okay, and they had a big band there.
They had a stage band.
Stage band. That's what they called it, right? Stage band.
Yeah.
But I mean, how cool is that? You know, you're 12 years old and you're playing, you know, big band. You know,
you're playing music. I mean, it was great because, you know, we played pop music, you know, R&B and jazz. I mean, it was beautiful. It was
exactly. Great. I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, it was funny. Like your story with your brother being in arts, and then you came. That was my situation too, because my brother Terry, was there, you know, before I got there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big sort of advantage I always felt to have that, you know.
Oh yeah.
Because I already knew people and just being a young guy getting to play with guys, you know, 3 years older than you is a big deal when you're like, you know, 12. Yeah. You know. Yeah. I mean, like these cats are good, man, you know.
Come on. Absolutely, man.
But and you know, Roy, man, you know, I mean, I know you know Roy so well and played with him so much, but I remember the first day he came into the school, you know, because I was a junior and he came as a freshman. I think you guys are the same year, right?
I came in the year later, 85.
Okay, all right. So I'll never forget. We're in big band, you know, and you know, Danny O'Brien was like the lead trumpet player, you know. And Danny's a senior, and I just still remember sitting in that room, being over. The drums were over here. You look up and the horns are over there. Yeah. You're over there, you know. Yeah. And I remember hearing Roy for the first time, you know, and it was just like he just had that sound right away as a freshman, you know, that same sound that he had throughout, you know, that tone. Yeah. And he was such a natural. This is the way he was playing blues, and you know, obviously, where he went from there to his senior year, it was like, you know, I mean, come on, you know.
Yeah, man. I mean, I tell people about the Music Fest USA competition, like in 1987, like when we went to Chicago and we met like Christian McBride and Joey DeFrancisco and, you know, that whole Philly crew, and just to see the I mean, because I thought everyone had like a Roy Hargrove. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, we got out there and realized like, wow, I mean, he's really special. Yeah. And, you know, he's truly has the gift, you know. But
no question. And you can hear it right away.
Oh, yeah.
He did a lot for me. I mean, like, you know, just hanging in with him every day and playing with him at school and doing gigs after school. And like, you know, when I graduated in 86, I went to Berkeley for a year.
Okay.
And then I moved back to Dallas for 1 year. So Roy was a senior then. So by then, Roy, it's like, you know, he was sounding unbelievable. Yeah. You know, that jump from like, he already sounded great his sophomore year when I left, but that jump, it was like, damn. And so that year, I got to do a lot of gigs with him. It was great. We were hanging a lot and playing a lot of gigs, you know, like in Denton and around Dallas. And he actually was the guy that told me about the new school in New York City. Because I was talking to him, I was like, yeah, man, I just came down here for a year. My next move is I'm going to head up to New York, But I wouldn't mind, like if I go to school, like my parents will help me out, I didn't want to just go in there cold. It was like sort of my way to like, okay, get some help, which I'm very grateful for. And, I wanted to continue studying and stuff. But so we were doing a gig in Denton, me and Roy, and I picked him up, at his crib in Oak Cliff, and drove out to Denton. He brought me a pamphlet. And he handed it to me. He said, here, man, this is the new school. It's just started a new jazz program. All the great cats are teaching at it. So that's how I actually heard about it. And then I went up to New York and auditioned and checked it out and, made the move. But, that was cool of him, that he's the guy. I'll never forget, he handed me that new school pamphlet, in the car that day.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, he's it's just, what can you say, man?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that man, I'd miss him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys were tight, and I know you played with them a lot over the years too.
Yeah. Yeah. We, and I mean, just see his transformation into different styles as well. I mean, we all knew that he had that other element in his playing. But like when he did the RH Factor, I mean, that was so great to see because, he had been wanting to do that for a long, long time,
Well, I remember from Dallas, that year I'm talking about where I came back for a year, we did some like funk and blues gigs together. I used to play with this guy named Benoist King, who's a great guitar player in Dallas. He's one of these guys that plays everything. He sings blues, jazz, funk, like legit, Mm-hmm. And we used to play these gigs down at the Greenville Bar and Grill. Remember that place?
Yep.
And I remember Roy would play with us there. And Roy loved funk. I mean, he loved funk. Anytime he got any chance he got to do that, he was so fucking into it.
Yeah.
So, like you said, like when he showed up on, D'Angelo's record, I mean, he just killed that stuff, man.
Yeah, man. And you know what? A lot of people don't know that him and Keith Anderson, they had a band, a funk band, it's called The Future. And they were working around town.
I did not.
I mean, they were killing it back then, man. I mean, as kids. So
I got to tell you, man. Like running back into you, I just got to tell this story because I hadn't seen you in ages, and I guess about 10 years ago I started studying with Michael Carvin.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take some lessons again, and I asked around. Everybody kept pointing back to Carvin, so I was like, great. Anyway, so I had a great experience with him. And he was playing the jazz standard, and so I was like, I'm going to come out and check it out. And I had no idea, you were in the band,
Mm-hmm.
and I hadn't seen you in probably 20 years or more, And I'm like, who's this badass saxophone player? I'm like, this guy looks familiar, but I couldn't, And then, of course, Carvin's like Keith Loftus, and I'm like, holy shit, man. So we talked that night, but I remember it was just so amazing to see you that night and hear you. And like, I knew you were great. I'd been hearing about you because you've been in New York. You've been killing it around New York, but I hadn't seen you since high school.
Yeah.
And you were a couple years younger than me, so like to hear, and you always played good, but I mean, it's like that transformation that happens. And I was like, Keith? because you're, I mean, listen, you know how much I love your playing. I use you in my own band.
Likewise,
now.
Man.
I love playing with you, man. It's like that.
Man.
You have that rare thing that like, I always feel like the best musicians are able to like, just lift the music to another place, and like, I love playing with you because I always feel like it's going to go there.
Oh yeah.
If we want to go there, it's going to go there. And like, I love that interplay and that interchange. And, I love the drum saxophone. It's the Elvin Coltrane thing.
Me too.
And whenever I get a chance to play with you, it's a pleasure, man.
Man, it's my pleasure, man. And
I wanted to say that,
Thank you, man. So, man, I wanted to ask you about the beginnings of Spin Doctors.
Yeah.
Because you just said that you went to Berkeley and then you came back home, right?
Yeah.
So when was that period, or what year?
Yeah. So that was, so I graduated in 86 from Arts Magnet, went to Berkeley that next year, came home that next year, So then 1988 is when I moved to New York and went to the New School. So I'm up here in New York City, and I met Chris Barron, the singer, and Eric Shankman, the guitar player, at the New School. They were going to the New School. And there were tons of great cats there, you know. I mean, John Popper from Blues Traveler was there.
Wow.
And then, you know, you had Larry Goldings and, I mean, just like, you know, Peter Bernstein.
Yeah.
I could go on and on.
I think Jesse Davis could have been there. I'm not sure.
Jesse Davis. I used to play with Jesse. We did a class. I was on the same ensemble, the same every Friday. Jesse, incredible player, man.
Yeah.
Incredible. It was just amazing. So anyway, and it was a really cool vibe there because you had, you know, like you had like all these jazz guys, and then you had like there were a few rock bands there, like Spin Doctors were forming, Blues Traveler. You had all the teachers, you know, the heroes, man. You know, I mean, I was studying with Bernard Purdy. You know.
Wow.
Anyway, so we met up there in '88, and Eric Shankman, him and Chris had already met a year earlier, so they kind of knew each other. And then we met up at the school, and Eric was like trying to put a band together. So he asked Chris, he's like, "Hey man, do you want to like, you know, I'm trying to get a band together. You want to give it a shot?" So Chris was like, "Cool." And Chris was like a unique guy at the school because he was like, you know, it's mostly jazz musicians, and Chris was like this thin singer guy with a notebook in his hand, kind of like out of place, but like, you know, but you know, he was there. It was great,
right?
So I'll never forget, I was practicing. They had a couple practice rooms there, and I'm practicing, playing some groove. I actually remember what groove I'm playing. I was playing like it was some Stevie Wonder song, like the Superstition groove, you know. It's like, and I always loved that groove. And I don't know why I remember that, but I just remember I was doing this, and I got a knock on the door. And it's Eric, you know, and he's just like, "Hey man, you know, you sound good. I'm putting a band together. Are you interested?" You know. And you know, I just moved to town. I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll check it out. Let's get together. Let's see what happens." You know. Yeah. So anyway, so that's how I got involved. And then I was in another band. Like right when I got to town, I just started going out on auditions, trying to get gigs. And back then, you would look in the back of the Village Voice.
Wow.
That's where all, you know, that was one way to get gigs. If you just moved to a new town, you're going to do everything.
Right.
You're going to, you know how it is. You're going to jam sessions, you're going to clubs, you're meeting people. But back then you'd be answering ads in the back of the Village Voice. Yeah. And most of them were pretty beat up, you know. I'd go down to some of these auditions. And one of them I went to was a funk band called Spade. A real hardcore funk band, you know. And there were like 30 people there auditioning. And I went in there, and I was, you know, young and hungry, and I'm new. Yeah. I'm like, I got something to prove. And I just went in there and killed it. And me and Mark, the bass player, Mark White, the Spin Doctors bass player,
right,
was the bass player in that band. And I remember after the audition, it was this heavy funk shit. After the first song, like we just high-fived each other. It was like this, you know, he was psyched because he just sat, according to him, he was like, "I just sat through 30 drummers who can't play," you know. That's Mark, you know. So eventually it came down to me and a girl. And I think they wanted the girl. He said, Mark always tells the story. They wanted the girl because they wanted to have a girl. And I said, "You got to get this guy. This guy, I'm telling you right now, if you don't get this guy, I'm out of here." You know. So they picked me, and that was a lot of fun. But even better than that, it led to about 6 months later asking Mark to join the Spin Doctors because we just kept going through bass players. We couldn't find the right fit. And I knew Mark all along, and I knew that Mark was this incredible bass player. But I was just like, you know, he's totally different than us. This dude is like a hardcore dude from the Bronx. He's like, you know, just personality. He's like a real sort of like loud mouth. You know, I don't know how much you know Mark, but he's a trip, you know. I love the guy, but he's a trip, you know. And I'm thinking this guy, it's just not going to. Me and Chris and Eric were like these like sort of mellow dudes. We're into like, you know, the Stones and the Beatles. We're also into James Brown. We're into all this stuff. And Mark was just like, he didn't even know who Led Zeppelin was, you know. He's just like Prince, Madonna, P-Funk, you know, that's it. You know, he's like, so Mick Jagger, he's in the Who, right? You know, that kind of stuff. You know, he always jokes around about that. So anyway, after all this, finally it was like, you know what, let's let's check out Mark. I think, it may work, it may not.
Right.
And we had a rehearsal, and it was that was that. And that's basically how the band, formed.
Wow. The new school.
A new school, yeah.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that place brought a lot of people together. It's like,
Yeah. I went there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, okay, how long were you there?
I was there from 95 to 97 when I got to town. Yep, I went straight there and finished. And
it was a great entry into New York, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, man. And I remember this. I remember Arnie Lawrence and Ellie Howe coming down to Arts Magnet to recruit.
Wow.
And they at the time, I was like, New York, no way for me. So I stayed and went to Weatherford College for a few years, and then went to Southern University, and then finally came to New York in '95. But yeah,
wow, that's cool, man. Yeah, they
and you worked with Arnie quite a bit, right?
I played with Arnie a lot. We were really tight. He used to come play with the Spin Doctors all the time, and we brought him to Europe with us. I mean, he was
wow.
We used to love having him play with us because he would just take it to another place. But then I also played with him. He called me a lot for a lot of his jazz gigs,
Mm-hmm.
And we had this Monday night gig. This was around 1999. Every Monday at the Sidewalk Cafe for about a year. And it was a great band. It was all guys from the new school and me, and it was Robert Glasper. It was Mike Marino.
Wow.
Bilal.
The Houston crew. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Bilal and Renee Hart, who's like my age, and it was just
the bass player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He played bass. Yeah, exact. Great bass player.
Mm-hmm.
And that band was so good, man. That was so much fun.
Wow.
We played like 3 sets, and those guys had just moved to town, and they were killing it then, and it was great, man. And through that, I ended up, because Bilal was on that gig. Bilal, right? The singer, the R&B singer?
Yeah, for sure, man.
So I was living on 12th Street at the time, and I was like, damn, this guy's good, man. So I invited him over to my studio. I was like, I have a studio. If you're interested in coming over and doing some recording, I'm doing some producing these days, and I'd love to work with you. And he was like 18 or 19 at the time, and I don't think he'd really ever even been in the studio. And he was like, okay, cool, man, yeah, So he came over, and I remember he brought over this little cassette tape of this song. He'd just written this song. It's called Love Poems, and so we recorded it. Anyway, to make a long story short, we did a bunch of stuff. The stuff we did ended up being his demo that got him his deal with Interscope.
Wow.
And then 3 of the songs that we recorded ended up on his record.
Wow.
That I produced. So it was just like, it was great. And it was just, one of those sort of classic New York things. And
wow.
Another thing through Arnie. And, but yeah, man, I mean, Arnie was a big, big influence and mentor for me.
On all of us, man.
Big time. And I miss that guy a lot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was one of a kind. And,
he was.
Great player.
He was.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Good
man,
dude.
speaking of studio, so I wanted to ask you about your label and your whole ownership of your studio and how you work and your method and how you go about, putting together your sessions, or
Sure.
who you invite.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in around this time, I was just talking about, like in the late 90s when I did that Bilal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This was around the time when all of a sudden the home studios were, was getting, you could buy like ADATs and stuff. Remember the ADATs?
Yeah.
So like I had an ADAT set up. I had a Mackie board, and I got 24 tracks of ADATs and some mics, and I built my own studio at my house on 12th Street, and that was sort of the beginning of it. And over the years, got Pro Tools, and I found myself doing too much. I was engineering, producing, playing drums. So finally, in 2006, I made my own solo record of my own. That was kind of the beginning of what we're doing now together with my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But And the engineer on that project, I went up to Woodstock to record it, and the engineer was Roman Clune, who is now my partner in my studio for like the last 10 years. So, it's great because he's the engineer. He's got the gear. I kind of took myself out of that, and all the better for it, But, basically, I think, particularly for a drummer in the modern era, it's an advantage if you can have a place to record drums. Just speaking this from a drum point of view, to be able to offer people, hey, if you want to send me, you're in England or in Europe or wherever, anywhere in the world, you can send me something and I can do it for you. And that's become sort of the norm, even more now with COVID. Everybody's got, everybody's an engineer now. Everybody already was, but now it's like really to another point. So I've always looked at it like that. Like I got to have that set up. I do a lot of work outside of my studio too, but it's to be able to offer that is good. And so basically, as far as how we book stuff at our studio, most of it is people just saying, hey, Aaron, I want you to play drums on this project. Yeah. Or, hey, we're bringing this in. Can we come in and do tracking? Or maybe we just need to come in and do vocals. Or maybe Roman will be mixing stuff. So it's just all different things.
Got it.
But, after years of it, like anything, you got a reputation and you have sort of a lot of this kind of clients that will come back for multiple records, like James, he's done his last 3 or 4 records there, and, Joan Osborne's done some stuff there. Mm-hmm. And, I did a record with Steve Forber, Willie Nile. Tons of people have come in and people seem to like it. It's a comfortable place. Roman is a fantastic engineer.
Nice.
I love it because all my stuff's there. So whenever, obviously I'm happy to go anywhere and record, but when it's at my place, it's great because all my drums are there.
Yeah.
And I got this great relationship with Roman, so everything always sounds really good. But that's it. I don't have a label. I don't have a record label. Roman and his wife have a label called Innsbruck Records, and they've put out some stuff through that. But I'm not part of that. But we are partners in the studio. So
got it.
It's been a great thing. And it's also just a great place to go and have a place to play the drums and practice. When we're not booked, because again, that's the hardest thing for a drummer in New York is where you're going to practice.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of how the whole thing started for me. When I had my place on 12th Street, I had a basement, and at first it was just I soundproofed the basement so I could practice the drums. Right. And then it turned into what it is now.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Are you tech savvy? Are you like, as far as like social media, and are you that guy who's like, you're like everywhere, you're like really posting? Yeah.
I post. I'll post little drum clips. If you look at my Instagram page, you see drum clips and food clips and pictures of the bridge over there. It's like, but my feeling with that is like, it's cool. Keep yourself out there. I like to see what people are up to. And I think for the younger generation, it's maybe, I think there's positive and negative aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are people that have done really well with it and actually been able to sort of help their career with it. Like, for instance, I think for like music education, if you're like, if you have a lot of followers, you get people to check out your, Patreon page or buy your books you're making, or if you have a huge audience and you can get people to see that you have a recording coming out. It's very positive. I think for somebody like me, I've never really gotten a gig through social media. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not really my thing with that. I think if I was to delete all my social media tomorrow, I don't think it would affect anything, really.
Yeah.
But there are some people that are really savvy with it, and I think use it in a really positive way.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think it's important to like, sometimes I worry about like the younger, obviously I have a lot of drummers on my page, and I'm just seeing this like drums. And sometimes I wonder, like, I remember like back when I was at Berkeley, I did that like 10-hour a day practice thing, just all day. And now it's like, everybody's got their phone set up and like, I think they're like, recording themselves and posting, and you're wasting like half your time doing that when you should just be, how about practice, you know? You could be twice as good if you like just took the hours off that, you know? It's just a focus on like showing people what you're doing. And I'm guilty of it too. But I mean, it's a bit of a like emotional head trip. I think that in the modern era, people rely on that, you know, likes and comments and how many followers you have for your own sort of emotional well-being. And that's a little bit of a dangerous thing to get into, I think. So that's kind of how that's my, you know, I could talk about it for a long time, but I try to stay positive with it. But I I definitely do think there's some negative aspects of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the younger generation, do you have any advice or insight for the next generation of where we are now and going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, people ask me that a lot, you know, and I think things are different, like we just talked about. But I think the one thing that will never change is you got to work really, really hard at your craft. You know, if you want to be a great musician and you want to make a living playing music, I think for one, you have to do the homework. You got to work really hard. Whatever it is you want to do, no matter what style, keep an open mind. You know, I think it's always a mistake to be like, okay, I want to be a jazz player. Well, that's great, but don't then discredit all the other stuff out there, because, you know, all the great musicians that I know, whether it's what they do or not, they listen and usually like everything, you know. So keep an open mind, work really hard. There's no shortcut. You're not going to just go from A to B without, you got to do, I don't care who you are. Everybody went down the same path, you know. So I think, you got to be willing and ready to struggle for a while, because there's very few people, no matter what level they got to, they didn't go through some period of you know, struggle. And the other thing that I think is really important is to look long term, like sort of look about, okay, where do I see myself in? I mean, like do it in increments. Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And then reevaluate that every 5 years, because, you know, the choices you make now are going to affect what happens later. Let's say you want to be, you know, the next great studio drummer. You know, let's just use that as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you got to figure out how you're going to get there. First of all, you got to be a great drummer. You got to be versatile. You got to be creative. You got to be you. You want to be unique. Don't try to sound like everybody else, because we already got that person. I think people go down that road way too much.
Yeah.
And again, study all the great musicians out there. They got their own thing. They don't sound like that person, you know. So find your own voice. But look down the road and make the right decisions. Like if you know you want to be a studio drummer, or let's just say, then maybe think twice about taking the Broadway gig, you know, or taking the, you know, you want to like not lock yourself into a situation that you're going to wake up 5 years later and you realize it's hard to do, because we all got to pay the bills and we all got to, you know, I get that. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But I've always felt like, especially when you're young and you can take those risks. You know, it's like example for me is when I moved to town, I wanted to be a jazz drummer, I wanted to be a studio drummer, and I wanted to be in a famous rock band. You know, I had equal interest in all those. I still do. And luckily, after 30 years, I've sort of gotten to do all those things, you know. But when I first moved here, I was like, okay, I'm going to be ready for whichever comes my way. And when I met the guys in the Spin Doctors, you know, I didn't know how that was going to go at first, but after about 5 months, 6 months, I was like, you know, this is pretty cool. Like this is turning into, this band sounds good. It's a creative environment for me. I'm able to develop my own sound, play how I want, contribute to the songwriting process. And I'm seeing that people are liking us. We're starting to get crowds. So I made a decision, like, you know what, I'm going to give myself a couple years. I'm going to give myself maybe 2 years with this project and really just devote myself to it and see what happens, because I believe it's showing signs of potential. But if I'm sitting here in 2 years and it's not happening, you got to move on.
Yep.
But I made that decision and it paid off, you know, and I had time later to do go back to those other things I wanted to do. So I just think like that's the best advice I can give is like, look down the line and make important decisions about where you see yourself later. Because it's real easy to wake up 10 years later just because and again, I get it, man, you got to pay the bills. But like when you're young, especially is the time that you can struggle then. I mean, I had no money and I was living in some shithole apartments for a while. And it's fun when you're 20, Yeah. When you're older, you can't do that anymore. But
right.
So.
Wow. Yeah, man. Versatility. Absolutely.
Well, that's key. You got to be ready to, I think anybody that has a long-term career in music, you got to have the goods, some people might get lucky, for a while, especially in a band. I mean, there's plenty of successful bands where like, there's one of the guys in the band is just, he's okay, but as soon as that band's over, that's it. The career is gone, so, whatever it is, whatever area you go in, if you're looking long term, you got to have the versatility. And I know I've known since I was a kid that I wanted to do this. So I knew I was lucky to have the guidance from teachers like we spoke of earlier to know what I had to do. And I was motivated. And like anything, man, it's the work doesn't. You got to work really hard, and the work doesn't end. I mean, I'm in my 50s now. I'm going to be 53 in a couple of weeks, and I'm practicing every day because I'm getting my ass kicked every day. That's why I moved to New York in the first place. So you can't just rest on your laurels. Oh, I had some success. All right, cool. I mean, you can if you want to, but like I didn't get in this to make money anyway. I got in this to be good, and make music.
That's right. That's right.
Man. But it's hard to keep that motivation. And like, it's one of the reasons I went to Carvin. Carvin, as you know, from working with him, he's like the expert on that, on finding ways to keep you motivated and ultimately you got to figure it out for yourself. But he was really key with that with me.
Michael Carvin definitely knows how to tap into you to bring out the best in you and get to exactly what you're trying to do and help you harness, that whole energy that you're trying to put out there. He definitely,
he's got a gift, man. And not only that, he's an unbelievable drummer.
Master.
I mean, it's
drummer.
It's rare that you find people that can teach so well and play so well. It's usually one or the other. It's really usually one or the other. I mean, but Michael, I've seen him a number of times with you and some of his other groups, and he's incredible.
Yeah, he is.
It must be a blast to play with him.
Oh man, it's always fresh. It's always new. And he's always pushing you and the entire group.
Yeah.
Hey man, one more question. What did you learn about yourself during this last year?
Man, I think, well, probably that I'm tougher than I thought I was, I think a lot of us did, look, it would have been really easy to just sort of like, a lot of people really sunk into some deep holes and I can see that, and I have too, in a way. And, it's been a rough year in many ways. But I think, you learn that, we persevere, man, and like, this has been a horrible thing for the whole world. And, listen, man, you go through history. The world's been through some horrible, horrible times and generations come out of it. You read about history and you wonder, how the hell did they live through that? Yeah. And so like, this is testing us. We've never really lived through anything like this. We lived through 9/11. We've lived through some deep stuff. But this is something that nobody was not affected by. Every single person was affected by this. So in one way or the other.
Yeah.
So I think I learned that, like, I think we're all stronger than we realize. And
sure.
And we will come out of this. And I don't know, man. If we can get through this, we can, what are you going to do? You just do the best you can, man, So it's certainly been a learning experience for everybody. I think it's, one thing we can all agree on, or apparently not, maybe, but, But I mean, for the most part, whether you say so or not, you dealt with this.
Yeah.
Everybody dealt with this.
We have.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, I think we're seeing a little light now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm feeling better. I got my vaccinations. I'm all double vaccinated, man, and I'm still being careful. I'm not taking it for granted.
We have to.
But I think if we do the right thing, get these vaccinations out there, we can get past this.
Yeah, man.
And hopefully we'll all just. I mean, some people. I mean, it's sad. We lost so many people, and there's going to be
a lot of people, man. It's once you think back and you realize the people that we lost, and it's shock. And I think we're all still in somewhat a state of shock.
Yeah. And I think that's going to last. That's going to, the long-term effects are going to be there for all of us in a way, different levels for different people. But, we'll persevere, man.
We will.
Like society has in the past,
Absolutely. We will. Aaron Comas.
Yeah, brother.
My brother, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Cheers.
And cheers. So let's, hopefully we will get to some music here soon.
Listen, as soon as I get the call that we got a gig, I'll be calling you because I'm ready to play. I think we'll be playing together, man, sooner than later.
Yeah, I think so.
I think
so. I think so.
Well, hey, brother, thank you for having me. This is a great show. I love.
Man, thank you so much, man.
I got to get a shirt, man. That's nice.
Hey, man, listen, they're coming. I'll get you one. They're coming.
I'll buy one as soon as they're online. I'll be there.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, man, and thanks again. Great to see you here.
Hey, man, good seeing you, man. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Take care, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Keith.